Hello and welcome back Directory family. Hope you all are doing great. So in today's video, I'm going to discuss control and coordination, the complete chapter. So first I will discuss about control and coordination in animal, and then I will discuss about control and coordination of plants. So let's get started. And this is a very interesting chapter as well. Now, when we are talking about control and coordination, we are actually talking about the regulation for organization. Regulation for organization. So what does this mean? It is actually the regulation of our physiological function towards the external environment or the things towards which it responds. It has to be in a organized form. Regulation for organization. Now, in this particular part, we will discuss about human, right? The control and coordination is actually the system which is helping in the regulation of physiological function towards which our body function or respond in an organized way, right? So control and coordination is very important. Now here we are going to see about, under this control and coordination is about nervous system. So nervous system is basically classified on two types. They are classified as two types, which is brain and spinal cord. Now these two systems play a very significant role, very important role in controlling and coordinating our body function. So when we are actually discussing about control and coordination, and we are seeing that they are helping in the regulation for organization, so towards which the body is responding and regulating is actually the stimulus. It is actually the stimulus or stimuli for which our body respond. Now these stimulus are actually the external surrounding things towards which our body respond, or we also call them the external agents. For example, the temperature change, right? So these days it is very hot outside, and in hot temperature, how our body is responding? By sweating. In cold, how our bodies respond to the external environment or climate conditions? By shivering. So these are the things towards which our body responds, and what it is actually receiving from the surrounding is the stimulus, right? So stimulus are the things towards which our body is responding. And how our body is responding? By receiving the signals from the external environment. So stimulus play a very significant role, and towards these stimuli or the external surrounding, our body perform to regulate for organization, right? Now, here we are discussing about brain and spinal cord, and we have seen that what are stimuli, right? Stimuli we use for a plural and stimulus is for singular. Now these brain and spinal cord are actually functioning, or they are actually helping in the transmission of information in the form of electric impulses. They are helping in transmission of information in the form of electric impulses, and they are very fast in responding, right? As soon as it receives the signal or from the receptors, they instantly respond towards the message they get from the surrounding, right? Now what are actually helping here in brain and spinal cord nervous system are actually the neuron cells. They are neuron cells. So neuron cells are actually the structural and functional unit of our nervous system. And these neuron cells, they are structured like this, right? This is the simple structure of neuron cell, and they form a network for transmission of signals. How they are helping in the transmission of signal? Like suppose this is one neuron, right? This is one single neuron, and these are actually the dendrites, which are branch-like structure dendrites. This center part is known as nucleus. This is cell body. We call it cell body, or we also call it cytosol. These are axons. These are axons, and these are nerve ending. These are nerve ending. Now, how it is taking the information, or how the signals are received by these neuron cells? Suppose this is one single neuron cell, right? And these neuron cells are in the form of network throughout our body. And these neuron cells are helping in the transmission of signals to the brain or spinal cord. And as they reach there, the body responds on the basis of signal by whichever nervous systems has to be respond, right? So what is actually happening here? When this is suppose neuron 1, right? Neuron 1, then we have neuron 2, then we have neuron 3. So like this, there is a network of neuron. So here what will happen? The signal received by the receptors, it will go to neuron 1, right? Now signals are received actually by the surface of a body, right? By muscles, muscle tissues, they will respond. Okay, so from neuron cells, suppose the signal will first go to the dendrites, which are these branch-like structure, and from these branch-like structure, it will go to the nucleus. Through nucleus, it will pass from axons, and then it will reach to nerve endings, and from nerve ending of neuron 1, suppose here we have neuron 2, the transmission will take place. There will be some gap, or we call it synapses or gap junctions. From these gap junctions, from neuron endings, it will reach to the dendrites of neuron 2. The signal will reach the dendrite of neuron 2. And then so on, the process will be similar for all the neurons. So finally it will reach to the nervous system, brain or spinal cord, whichever system will respond, right? So this is how the transmission of electrical impulses takes place from neurons, right? And this is the structure of neuron cell. Now when we are talking about control and coordination, and we are discussing about nervous system, we have seen that how neuron cells are responding. Similarly, there are some chemical messengers also, and these chemical messengers are known as hormones. And these hormones are also helping in the regulation for organization, but they are helping in the growth, development, maturity, and changes which are produced in the body, right? So for certain things, these hormones are responsible. Now these hormones are secreted by various glands of a body. These hormones are secreted by glands of a body, and the over-secretion and hyposecretion can cause dysfunctions in our body or in the physiological functions that can affect our control and coordination functions mechanisms, right? If there will be a over-secretion or hyposecretion. So we will come to this part later, but here first we are discussing our nervous system. So we have seen that what are neuron cells and how they are helping in transmission of signals through the neuron cells in the form of electrical impulses. Now we will discuss about brain, central part of our coordinating system. And in this part we will discuss about brain. So brain is part of central nervous system, and what it is actually helping, they are helping in controlling involuntary and voluntary actions. Involuntary and voluntary actions. So how they are controlling these involuntary and voluntary actions? There are different regions which are responsible for conducting these functions, right? So the three main regions are forebrain, its midbrain, and its hindbrain. These three parts are responsible for controlling involuntary and voluntary actions. Now, what are these involuntary and voluntary actions? So, involuntary actions are those actions which cannot be controlled by our will. Involuntary and voluntary actions are those actions which cannot be controlled by our will. And the two regions which help in functioning, they are midbrain and hindbrain part. The first one, which is forebrain, it is helping in the regulation of voluntary actions, and these voluntary actions are those actions which can be controlled by our will, right? Like walking. I am walking, right? After 2-3 steps, I will stop myself, right? So these actions which I can control, these are actually the voluntary action. Involuntary actions are those like heartbeat, breathing rate, right? Salivation, vomiting. These movements or peristaltic movement, like such movements cannot be controlled by our will, and those are known as involuntary actions. So these voluntary actions and involuntary actions are basically the control and coordinate functioning of our muscles, right? They are actually the functions of our muscles, and these muscles are responding when they are getting signals. And how they are getting signals? By receiving it through the receptors, right? And then they respond. Okay, so these are the different regions of our brain which are helping in voluntary and involuntary actions. Now next we will see about spinal cord. Now spinal cord, again very important. Why? Because spinal cord are helping in reflex action. Reflex actions are more rapid actions as compared to brain. Suppose if you touch a very hot object, right? Or if someone pinch you or prick you with the pin, what will you do? You will instantly remove your hand, right? So that response that you are giving, that action which you are making by getting in touch, by getting in contact with things like which is very hot, or by getting pricked by a sharp pin. So those responses which are more instant, those responses are actually due to the reflex actions, and those reflex actions are more instant than the functioning of brain. So as soon as the muscles receive the signals, the neurons will receive the signals, it will respond instantly, right? It will instantly activate the muscles, the effectors muscles. It will activate the neuromuscular systems to respond instantly, and it will respond more instantly than the signals will reach to brain little bit later, right? So the pain which you feel, that will at the slow rate as compared to the response which you are giving towards the stimulus, right? So those are the function of spinal cord. Now these two central nervous systems part, which is brain and spinal cord, are very important, essential part of our body. So these two systems are controlled, or I will say they are protected by, the brain is protected by cranium, or we call it skull box. It is having cerebrospinal fluid, it is having cerebrospinal fluid. Now this fluid is helping brain to prevent from shock, right, and jerks. And cranium is a very hard structure which is having a dense connective tissues which is covering a delicate organ and an important organ, that is brain. So these are the things which are controlling, which are protecting brain. And spinal cords are protected by the vertebral column. They are protected by our vertebral column. Both these central nervous systems are very essential for our body, and this is how they function in response towards the signal they receive from their surrounding or by the physiological functions which are occurring in the body, right? Now we will see about that how hormones are helping in the control and regulations of our body functions. About chemical messengers. Now chemical messengers are the chemical signals towards which our body responds, right? So these chemical messengers, which are hormones, are formed from components like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, or lipids. These are the major compositions from which these hormones are formed. And these hormones which are formed are important in regulating or coordinating our body physiological system, because the secretion from each type of components are forming different hormones which are having specific functions, right? For example, insulin. Insulin is a hormone which are secreted by the pancreas, and those hormones are helping in the maintaining blood sugar level in our body. Similarly, fats and lipids are the components which are helping in the formation of hormones which are secreted by our gonads, testosterone, estrogens. You will see all these things, right? So these chemical messengers are also important, as we have seen about central nervous system. These hormones are actually secreted by the glands, and now these glands are classified as exocrine glands and endocrine gland. Now there is a difference between these exocrine and endocrine glands. Endocrine glands are those glands which are ductless, and these exocrine glands are having duct. These endocrine glands, they flow through the blood streams and it is to their target sites, whereas these exocrine glands are having ducts. For example, salivary gland, which are helping in the secretion of salivary amylase. Similarly, we have sweat glands. So those glands are having duct and they are known as exocrine gland. But as per our chapter, we are going to discuss about endocrine glands, which are ductless glands. Now we will start with the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is the most important gland. All the glands are important. All are helping in control and coordinating of a body system. But pituitary gland is known as the master gland because these pituitary glands are secreting most of the hormones which are secreted specifically by different ductless glands, right? Different endocrine gland. And now why I am saying this? This pituitary gland or the master gland help. These pituitary glands are having two lobes, right? They are having two lobes. One is anterior lobe, another one is posterior lobe. These two lobes are helping in the secretion of different hormones. Like in anterior part, there are several hormones which are secreted by these pituitary glands, like thyroid stimulating hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone. They also help in secretion of gonadotropins. Gonadotropins. Gonadotropins are those hormones which are responsible for the hormones like testosterone or estrogen hormones. They support those regulations of our gonads, the maturations and the secretion of reproductive gametes, right? And other example is ACTH. Another one which is very important, they are growth hormones, prolactin hormone. So these are some important hormones which are secreted by the anterior lobe, which is a part of pituitary gland. And from posterior lobe, they help in secretion of ADH, which is antidiuretic hormones, and also known as vasopressin, which help in reabsorptions of water. And the second one is oxytocin. This ACTH is adrenal cortex hormone, right? So these are certain hormones which are secreted by our master gland, pituitary gland. Along with this pituitary gland, there is one more part which is known as hypothalamus, and that hypothalamus is actually responsible for the regulations of different functions which are occurring in our body, and also it is helping in maintenance of homeostasis, which is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus helps in homeostasis, maintaining homeostasis of our body, keeping things in constant, or we can say regulation for organization is actually controlled by the hypothalamus, which is keeping everything in a standard, in a particular form which is required for our body in a homeostasis condition. Apart from pituitary gland, we have other glands like pineal gland. Pineal gland is again a very important gland, an endocrine gland, which is secreting melatonin, and melatonin secretion helps in maintaining our or managing our biological clock. They help in managing our biological clock. Apart from this, we have parathyroid gland. Parathyroid gland, they help in secretion or maintaining balance of calcium and phosphate that help in formation of bone. Calcium and phosphate. Another one is thyroid gland. They help in metabolic activities, and they are very, very essential as they help in maintaining metabolic activities of our body. Majorly it plays role for our growth balancing, right? Thyroid hormone secretes thyroxine. They secrete thyroxine, and the main composition of these thyroxines are the iodine or the table salt, and the deficiency of this thyroxine compositions can lead to goiter, right, where the metabolic activities get dysfunction, or we can say that they are not able to perform efficiently in a body for regulating the metabolic activities. Apart from this, we have thymus. Thymus helps in forming immune cells. Now these glands are very, very important. Okay, so you can note down thymus. The other important gland is pancreas. Pancreas help in maintaining blood sugar level. They help in maintaining blood sugar level. They help in maintaining blood sugar level. And what they secrete are insulin. They secrete insulin which is helping in reducing the increased blood sugar level to the normal, and glucagon helping bringing back to the standard position the glucose level from the below point, right? Glucagon helping in the increase of sugar level to its standard point, and insulin is helping in bringing down the blood glucose level, sugar level to its standard position. Apart from this, we have adrenal gland. Adrenal gland, they help in stress management of a body, salt balancing, right? They are also known as stress hormones, and these adrenal glands are placed over the kidney, the pair of kidney, they are present over there. So they also help in maintaining osmoregulations. And apart from these, we have another one important gland, which is testes and ovaries. Testes helping in secretion of testosterone, and ovaries, ova, they help in secretion of estrogen, and these help in formation of gametes or reproductive cells. So these are the important hormones and their secretions. These secretions are helping in the growth, development, maturity, changes in the body, everything, responding to the external stimulus, physiological functions. For all those things, these chemical messengers are responsible. So I hope up till now you are able to understand that how control and coordinations are taking place in humans, and what is the difference between nervous system when we talk about brain and spinal cord, and how chemical messengers are helping in the regulation for organization. So now next we will discuss about coordination in plants. We will see about coordination in plants. See, plants are also living organisms. Like we have seen in animals, plants are also living organisms. But there are several conditions which are different from animals in plant. And they are also having certain chemicals, messengers, electrical impulses to which they respond, and they are able to regulate for their organizations, right? So how plants are actually responding? So there are actually two types of movement in plants, and these movement are growth dependent. These movement are growth dependent and growth independent. Growth independent. Now when we are talking about growth dependent and growth independent movement in plants, that means these growth dependent movements are helping in the growth and development of plant, and these growth independent movements are helping plants to live in the surrounding conditions. Let me explain it with the help of diagram, right? So suppose there is a plant, okay? We have a plant here, okay? We have a tree over here. Okay. So we know that in plants there are different type of tissues which are actively dividing, right? So the tissues which are actively dividing, what they do actually, they help in developing or helping the growth of the plant, right? They are helping in the growth of plant. How they are helping in growth of plant? By proliferating the cells or by increasing the number of cells. And what is happening by the increase in number of cells? The root part or the aerial part, they increase in their size, right? They increase their length. Apart from that, growth dependent, there are several stages in the plant lifespan also. Like there will be a stage where the flower will occur, and that flower will undergo for the formation of fruit, right? So all these things are regulated by the growth dependent movement. So the growth dependent movement is helping in the growth of a plant, right? So here we can see that when the roots are increasing their length, it is because of the continuous division of their root tissues, root cells, or the increase in length of the aerial part, or there is an increase in width of this trunk is because of the continuous division, and those continuous divisions are helping with the help of hormones which are helping with the growth dependent movement of plant. So plant cannot change their location, right? They are at their fixed position, and in that fixed position the plant grow their width or the length, and apart from these things they grow their different lifespan stages, right? The plant, where if I talk about seedling, okay, then it germinates, okay, and several different stages comes. The cotyledons are formed, then the flower is formed, and then fruit is formed, right? So several different stages. That growth developments are known as growth dependent movement in a plant. But when we are talking about growth independent movement, it means that certain movements which are not supporting the growth but helping plant to respond with the external condition. For example, if you have seen a flower or if you have seen plant, right, many times what happen in these summers, you can observe that if you are not providing proper water to the plant, what will happen? Their leaf shrinks. The leaf shrinks, and that shrinkage of leaf is due to the plasmolysis, right? Plasmolysis. So what is happening in this case, that there is certain conditions where the scarcity of water, and due to that condition the leaves are responding that they are getting shrinked, and when the leaves are getting shrink, they are getting plasmolized, and again if it gains the water, right, what will happen? The deplasmolysis will take place. Deplasmolysis will take place. So this shrinkage and swelling of leaves, right, these are the response towards the external environment, is growth independent. Similarly, we can take an example of mimosa plant, which is a touch me not plant, and what is happening here? It is shrinking or closing its leaf when being touched. Another example we can take here is of a pitcher plant, which is an insectivorous plant, which is not responding for the growth dependent, but it is responding for a growth independent movement, right? So these plasmolysis, deplasmolysis condition of leaf or the mimosa plant activity by getting touched, or the condition we have just now also discussed about the insectivorous plant. So all these conditions are supporting growth independent movement, right? So what are the things which are supporting these control and coordinations? Are the chemical messages, right? Now here we are going to see two main things which are supporting these growth dependent and growth independent things. So the response of a plant towards these things are dependent on two types of movement. They are nastic movement. And tropic movement. Nastic movement are those movements which are against the stimulus, right? Which are against the stimulus. And tropic movement are those movements which are towards the stimulus. For example, this movement of mimosa plant is a nastic movement, which is against the response. When we are touching it, it is closing its leaves, right? So this type of movement is known as nastic movement, and most of the growth independent movement are considered to be nastic movements. And these tropic movement are those which are actually getting stimulated by the external environment and they are responding towards it. So for photosynthesis, the photo period for which plant responds for the synthesis of the food, right? The growth of roots towards the soil wherever the moisture is present. So that growth of root or the increase in the length of root towards the moisture condition where the moisture is present in the soils toward which these roots are growing is actually the response towards the stimulus they are receiving, and this movement we call is hydrotropism, right? So similarly there are different tropic movements. There are phototropism, that is the movement towards the light. Second, geotropism. Third one is hydrotropism. And fourth one is chemotropism, right? So these are the responses for the growth and development. So phototropism towards the photo period or the light period, geotropism towards the gravity, right? These roots of a plant are growing towards the gravity and the aerial part of plant is growing against the gravity. So the increase in length of the root is towards the gravity, and this we call it geotropism. Hydrotropism, just now I was giving you the example of moisture condition in the soils toward which these roots are growing. So this is the hydrotropism condition. Next is chemotropism. Chemotropism condition when the plant gets matured, right, and it starts synthesizing for the transmission of pollen into the ovule for the fusion, right? So in that case, the formation of pollen tubes or the maturation of plant that takes place in a reproductive period of a flowering plant is because of the chemotropism, that is the chemical response towards the chemicals, right? So these are the things which are helping in the movement or the control and coordinations of plant, either growth dependent or growth independent. And there are certain things which are in the form of chemicals supporting these activity, and those are known as hormones of plant. Those are known as hormones of plants, or we also call them phytohormones. Now phytohormones are actually the hormones of plants which are helping in their growth and development, right? So these hormones are auxin, which are helping in the growth of plant, right? And these auxins are actually responding towards the photo period. Next is gibberellin or gibberellic acid, and this gibberellin or gibberellic acid helps in elongation of stem. They are helping in elongation of stem. These auxins help in growth. Another very important hormone is cytokinin. Cytokinin helps in the proliferation of cell and forms the callus, and callus is a mass of a cell, right? Like here we have seen that continuously dividing cells which are getting proliferated. So these are basically the part of cell divisions which are helping in the increase in the number of cells, and this is also helping in the growth and development. Cytokinin, right? Division, cell divisions, responsible for cell division. These are all hormones or phytohormones of plants. Next very important is ethylene. Ethylene is again very important because these are the hormones which are ripening the fruits, and these are very essential hormones. And next very important, which is inhibiting the activity of other hormones. Like we have seen auxin, gibberellic acid, cytokinin and ethylene. All these hormones are helping in the increase in growth and development of a plant. But one hormone which is helping in inhibition of this growth and development whenever there is an unfavorable condition for a plant, because when there is an unfavorable condition, the plant undergoes dormancy or inactive stage. That dormancy period or inactive stage that period is supported by hormones known as abscisic. They are known as abscisic. Abscisic. They are known as abscisic acids. So these abscisic acids are inhibiting the growth of plant, or they are helping in the dormancy of plant. I hope you are able to understand the coordination in animals and plants. With this, our chapter is over. Now if you have any doubt, you can write it in the comment section and I will definitely answer your query. So all the best, and please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and meet you in the next video. Till then, take care, all the best.